What's going on, everybody? Welcome into the Highlighted Business Podcast for business people. And today I've got one of my oldest business friends in the world on the show, Ian Goff, a perennial entrepreneur, and now he's just out there buying up all these businesses, and I want to talk about that and more. Ian, welcome to the show, man. Thanks for joining me.
How's it going, man? It's been a long time.
Man, it's been a really long time. It's we were just talking before we came on air here, and your daughters were jumping in and out of the screen, and you were like, "Yeah, we used to eat at his barbecue restaurant." And it hit me right in the nostalgia. I miss those days, man. I appreciate your friendship back then. It helped our jobs be a lot easier. That's for sure.
Lexington still misses the banana pudding, man. It's been rough without it.
My waistline does not. I'll be honest. I've been able to lose a few pounds and keep them off. Well, I'm glad you're here, man, and you're a perennial entrepreneur just like me, and I think that's why we've gotten along so well for so long. Like, I'd love for you to just take a minute and sort of tell people how you got into starting your first business.
Yeah. So actually, my father was the one that started our company, party and event rental. So back in the '80s, he was actually a musician. Was out on the road playing, and Jerry Reed and his people were kind of behind him and looking at their songs and kind of thought that was the direction they were going to go. And things just didn't work out, and came back to Lexington, and they were looking for, what to do. And he had a farming background. That's what my family had done for generations. And so, he knew how to work. And he was a good guy, and people knew him, so he knew how to sell stuff. And there was a little mom and pop party and event rental store that was up, and it was a couple tents, tables, and chairs. There was costumes, dishes, paper napkins back when you used to foil stamp people's names on them and all that stuff. And so this was '85, I guess. So I'm 3 years old at this point, and that's how we got into it. And we ran that, and he kind of grew that in from that was called the Party Shop to the early '90s. He started Southeast Tents, and that was more focused on large corporate university work. So we got into that, and then he branched out and we started a manufacturing division mid '90s, and it's just kind of gone on from there. I grew up in the business, have been around since day one, and came on 2004. So I've been there full time in the manager's role and head toilet cleaner, all those top-notch positions that you hold in a family business, and just worked my way through and learned a lot along the way and made a lot of mistakes, and here we are now.
Well, I'd love to dive into some of those things, man. Like, first off, like, what was it like working for a family business? Because I started a family business, so I didn't necessarily come into one that my folks had already built up a little bit. Like, what was that like? I mean, you grew up around it, so it had to be just part of your blood, I feel like, at that point. But was it something you were always going to do, or did you think about other stuff?
No, I never thought I was going to do it. I did it growing up, and I think it's really cool that you take a truck full of parts and pieces and you drive it out, and when you leave someone's property, there's a full-scale event. I mean, there's a production that happens, and so it's something that was always really neat, and I loved the building and the construction aspect of it, but kind of went away from that. Was in the mechanic business for several years, auto, and one day I was on my lunch break, and he called me, and he's like, "Hey, the guy who's the manager is leaving. Do you know anybody who might be interested in the job?" And me, just on my way to Subway to get my oatmeal raisin cookies, I'm like, "Yeah, I'll do it." And that's how I wound up with the job. I think we agreed on a financial figure. He paid me way less, and it's been one of I'm really fortunate because a lot of people who come into a family business and working with their fathers in particular, the father has built it, started it, whatever it is, and they don't ever want to let go. And my dad was always great about giving me enough rope to hang myself and being right there to help me figure out what I did wrong. So I mean, I was constantly allowed to make decisions, to make mistakes, to do things the right way, the wrong way, however it was, and learn so much along the way, and just kind of help develop my style as a manager, as a leader, as an owner, things that have, got me to where I am today, where I make equally as many mistakes. So,
do you remember anything like any of those early mistakes or stories that stand out where you're like sitting around with buddies going like, man, back in the day I did X, Y, and Z?
I mean, Igthus, the big Christian music festival we used to do. We did that thing from start to scratch and start to finish. And I mean, it would just always be a disaster. And I would forget this or forget their problem. One year we set up, there was like 100 different camping tents that we were supposed to set up. And you're supposed to leave like 20 feet of space between each one for parking or something. And I totally missed that. And we had like 50 tents that had to be moved in like 18 hours or something. Just total stupid on my part. You know, those things you're thinking about getting the work done and not the details and the logistics that go into large scale event production.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I'm sure I could sit here and go back in the Wayback Machine. I mean, I have trying to. It's so funny because you're so focused on getting the job done sometimes that you don't think about the full picture. And so, like, I wonder what that's like for you as an owner. Like, how often do you get in the business versus like stepping back and going, all right, I got to work on the business, as they say, and I got to make sure I'm thinking strategically as well, and that we're set up for the future for the next generation to come along and
Right.
take over.
And that's so much of what my job is today. And it's taken 20 years to get to this point where really I'm not in the day to day. I'm involved in it. I'm consulting, and what my actual role looks like today is completely different than it was last year. And 5 years ago at this time, I was still running production crew on almost daily basis. And today, my role is almost more predominantly, I would say, more as a CFO. I mean, obviously, I'm still in charge, but really focusing on those numbers and the finances and learn how those things look and being able to coach the managers that we have at the different locations of, how do you deal with these different situations? How do you deal with the people? And I learned that over the years, and I didn't have that coaching situation going on because it was all new. We were learning as we were going because we were just growing at such a rapid pace. There was never time to stop and be like, oh man, like what did we just do? You just got in it. It's like, okay, here's today. This is what Thursday looks like. We'll deal with Friday on Friday, and now we're looking at things, a 60 and 90-day plan, in the mid 2000s. That's just ridiculous. We would have never thought anything like that. You were foolish if you did something that silly.
You're like, I'm sitting here working this week, so I make sure we're here 60 days from now. I'm not real worried about any of your thoughts and feelings about what could happen in the next quarter. What's been the benefit of like getting back and not being so in the week to week from a just execution standpoint and actually being strategic? Like, are you feeling that pulling the business forward now in a way that maybe it wasn't before, or should you go back to doing it the other way?
Well, being able to forecast and look at things and project. I mean, we always used to be driven by the dollar, and it's not, money is obviously what drives all businesses, but somebody would call and it's like, hey, we got this job and let's just say it's $5,000 or whatever it was. We didn't take the time to job cost that out and say, well, we've got to send 4 guys and it's 3 hours away. Nobody stopped and said, oh man, this is 12 hours of truck time. And you start running those numbers to realize, well, this $5,000 job, by the time we factor in our house expense, is going to cost us $4,783. We could go right down to the end of the street and go do this $500 job and make more money. And understanding good money versus bad money has been really crucial. It's allowed me to step back and see that. And I got actively involved in a peer group around 2017, and being involved with a group of guys. And ours is very particular of, pretty much the same age demographic, families, kids. In the beginning, we were all on the East Coast. We were all party rental guys, and just having a sounding board of people that you can say, hey, just had a text before we got on this. A guy has a machine that we all use and a piece broke on it. Has anybody ever seen this? Oh yeah. Well, this is what it is. This is how you fix it. There's no playbook for what we do. There's such a finite amount of people that do this profession or are in it. To have that and be able to ask and just what this job, leadership, industry, and probably all jobs are like, but what it can do to your life. I mean, it can just break you down at times and wear you out, especially, and just having that group that you can bounce that off of and get that feedback back is crucial. It's been life changing.
Yeah, I love a peer group like that because you can, like you said, you can leverage other people's experiences, so you don't have to pay the either time tax or actual money tax to learn those lessons. You can kind of leverage them from other people. But some people have the mentality that, the pie is only so big. It's a fixed pie. Like if I give you some advice or information, all of a sudden maybe that puts my own business in danger. What would be your advice to that person who sort of has that, I call it a fixed mindset, maybe closed off, something like that, where they don't think that, there's plenty of space for everybody on the playground, so to speak.
Oh, yeah, I totally believe there's enough space for everyone. And I mean, I think that that's one of my closest friends and mentors in this industry is my biggest competitor. And so, having that relationship and that ability to be able to work together and say, hey, I don't have this. I've got a great customer here that needs service. Can you help this guy out? Can you do this? Or they'll call me, or my piece of equipment's broke down, or this can you help me out? Can we use yours, and bounce back and forth, and that ability to work together. I mean, it just builds industry, and I love when new companies come in. A lot of people are, oh, there's a new person in the market, and then we're going to be scared of them. Actually, I think you might have even posted out an article that somewhere, maybe LinkedIn, I saw it, and somebody always said that theory: if a new person comes in, people are looking for party rentals. Oh, well, they're checking this guy out. Well, when they're online and they're searching for party rentals, my name's going to come up. I mean, all that's going to do is be a driver for business. So I think competition is great. It keeps you honest. It keeps you growing, focused, moving forward. So, sorry, my kids are coming in here with me at the same time.
No,
so
you're good. You're good.
I'm thinking I'm getting a dish full of acorns here. So, it's like the giving tree.
Hey, the family business mantra is real. This isn't, you didn't make it up.
Family business never stops, man. It was, it's a really cool summer. This was the first year that both my boys, I got a 12-year-old and 10-year-old son. They came out and they worked part-time with me in the summers and did that. My daughters have come out, so I've got 4 kids, and just having them be able to come and be involved and experience it and do that stuff with me, it's awesome. It's everything that I got to do as a kid, and to be able to share those experiences with my children, it's, it's invaluable.
Yeah, yeah. Entrepreneurship is not easy. Owning a small business isn't easy, and it's very taxing, but that is definitely one of the benefits, is a little bit of flexibility with putting a 10 and a 12-year-old on the job site and making helping your kids get some lessons. I love that. I do want to go back to the competitiveness, or the having the other competitors angle really quick, because that was a conversation me and a buddy down here were having the other day, because we were talking to a person that had a dog sitting type business, dog daycare. Like you could drop your dog off there, and they were a little worried that one of these competitors were coming into town. And what I told them was, I was like, look, you've got an opportunity now to actually have a person. A couple different things can happen here. A, it's going to make it more popular around. They're going to spend their marketing dollars, like you said, to actually get more people looking for that thing. Because some people may not know that's even an option. Like, some people might not know that, oh, I can rent a tent for a backyard party that I'm having. I don't have to be having a wedding or something like that. And all of a sudden there's more options. But also there's like a competitive benchmarking now, because now this is another team that's on the field, and you can look at it as the owner of your team and go, where are we winning and where are we losing? Where do we have some room to improve here? And unless that other team ever showed up, you'd kind of be resting on your laurels almost, where you're going, oh, we're good enough. We don't need to improve some things. But all of a sudden you have a competitor in the space. They make your shortcomings glaringly obvious, I think, a lot of times.
Well, it makes you do a constant SWOT analysis. I mean, you got to know what those things are and what that looks like, where you stand in the market. What is your strength, your competitive advantages? Like you said, your weaknesses, because they'll rear their heads in a way that you might not realize. And that is another part of being a little more on the outside. Now I'm going in and walking the warehouse, and it used to be just so focused on, let's get this stuff on the truck. We need to get it out. We've got customers. We got a service. We've got, got a schedule. Got to keep schedule. And now, I'm in there and I'm walking around and I'm looking at, is this going to meet the standard of what the expectation of the client's going to be? And, one of the things, we were at one of our big trade shows, and I was sitting with one of my friends in a class, lady was talking, and I don't even remember what the topic was. And he and I were bouncing back. I said, your sales team is going to sell what's in the computer system. Your install crew is going to deliver what's in the warehouse. The only way that you're really going to be able to take it to that next level in this environment that we're in right now is what's your warehouse team doing? What is that group doing? How are they really pushing the envelope forward to make sure the quality's there, that the product's there, that everything is just up to that next level? And that was a huge investment. Probably our biggest investment we made into this season was brought in a new warehouse manager, brought in doubled our warehouse staff for a full-time position. It really just drilled down on that, with that being our focus for what we were doing. And we've basically gone through the first half of our season, and it's just paid huge dividends. And I think what it's preparing us for in the back half is going to really let it shine, what they're putting into it.
Yeah, how do you choose as the leader? How do you figure out, okay, this is the area of the business we need to focus on right now? Is it just a gut feeling that you have? Are you guys having like weekly meetings and people are raising red flags? Like what's the process like there for you guys?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of everything that you just talked about. We are listening to the customers first and foremost. What are we hearing back from our customers? Are we getting, hey, we want this product. Hey, we're talking about condition. Are we having issues with this? We're listening to our team members when we're meeting. What are they encountering when they're getting out to the job site? Are they having an issue that they're not getting enough information? They don't know how to, attack the job to be able to do it in a timely manner. I'm talking to other people around the country. What are you all doing? What are you seeing? What's the trends? What's been the big win for you? How are you tackling these big rocks? So it's a lot of it. And yeah, it does kind of boil down to, there's a gut decision. Do we go this direction? Do we go this direction? And like I said, when I was in a conference and my friend and I were talking about it, it was just that aha moment. Like, they're going to sell it. They're going to deliver it. The only thing I can do is make sure when it goes out there that it is the best that it can possibly be. Something that we can really stand behind. If we can do that, we can hold our head high.
Yeah, no, that's good. I like that a lot. I mean, there's like a theme developing here where it's you got to know your business, and then also having a strong community of people that not necessarily think the same way you do, because it's okay to have contrarian thoughts to the way you think. Sometimes I think it's good to challenge yourself in that way, but it's like people with the same values as you. They want to run a successful business. They want to have a good family life. They want to have a balance between those two things. And just having those sort of pillars to be able to lean on is going to help you be way more successful in business. So I love that. I love that that's the theme that's sort of developing here, especially for when we're talking about running an SMB. That's I think a lot of times when we're entrepreneurs and we're small business owners and we're getting into it, it sort of becomes, it can become all encompassing, where all of a sudden it's all we think about, all we do, and you're just too in the weeds. So having other people to come in alongside you and say, hey, if you thought about doing it this way, and having that support system is something that I think is really underrated. And people I don't know, I don't think that gets talked about enough when you look at some of these businesses that end up blowing up and becoming big time, think of an Apple computer or something like that. Like how much did community play into the role of that company specifically getting to where it is now? And I just think about, that's just one company, one story. How many thousands, hundreds of thousands of stories happen that don't get talked about enough, which is, honestly why I love doing this show here. So you guys are in a high touch customer service business. So I know either you or somebody on your team is definitely the customer service expert. So what are some of your thoughts or best practices on, actually, you got the best products in the world, like you just said, out of the warehouse, on the truck, sold and delivered. But once they're there, what are your thoughts on customer service? Do you have any tips or tricks for best practices?
Well, I think, in our industry, it starts with their sales rep, and we got a phenomenal sales team. My wife works in the business too. And as much as I like to think that I can sell anything better than anyone else, she's probably better than me in the sales world. We've got some people that came from, big corporate retail background. She worked for Ariat International. Her sister actually works for me at one of the locations. She worked for Disney. I've got people who, worked for in the state and people who are fresh out of college, just different backgrounds, different ways of communicating with the customer. I think it all starts with that. So when that initial conversation happens, how they're listening to the customer, they're understanding what their needs are, understanding their expectations, and then being able to document that and get it down on paper so you can give that to that delivery staff. So they know when they get out there, this is what the customer is expecting. And then when they get out there, as long as they have the documentation and the information they need, they've got the knowledge and the training to be able to go out and execute that. And we've also been really fortunate to maintain some long-term staff, which is not the norm in our industry, but making sure that we're taking care of our staff. That we're one of the first party and event rental companies to offer health insurance and 401k. And we've been doing that for a substantial amount of time. And most of the time people think of manual labor jobs as gigs, not careers, and summer work, things like that. But we're trying to change the script of the way people think about that. So if we've got a high level team that's coming out there and coming to your house or to your job or whatever that is, and they're representing us well, I mean, how they look, the interaction that they have with the customer, the way they're talking to them, and that's all built around the fact that they've been given the information to be able to talk to them in a way that is going to meet their expectation. And I think that's in customer service, meeting expectations is paramount.
Is there a way you guys go about setting those expectations? Because I know, I know that you're dealing with people's events and parties, so their expectations have to be pretty high already. But do you guys have a way of like, is it under promise over deliver? Is it just telling the truth and hoping that's what they want to hear? Or like how do you manage expectations in a super high expectation business like you guys run?
It's hard because every time we go out to produce an event, we're dealing with the most important day of someone's life. And that is got to be our mindset. This is the most important day of this person's life, and that's how we have to treat it. And yes, under promise, over deliver. I think that's great. We also have kind of the mantra of, would you have this at your wedding? Would you put this linen on your mother's Thanksgiving Day table? Would you accept this for yourself? Because if this wouldn't be acceptable to you, there's no way that you can ever accept our clients to find that to be of the caliber of what we expect to deliver.
Yeah, what do they call that? The golden rule? Just treat people how you want to be treated, right? I mean, it's so funny. I ask these questions to people, and I'm always hoping for some secret answer off the wall that I never heard before. And it almost 99 times out of 100, it is the old blocking and tackling answer. It's the truisms that we've just known since we were kids. And I think when we start businesses, we sort of, I don't know, we think that maybe it's different, or maybe these people that run these things are smarter or superheroes in some weird way, or just some mystique about it. Maybe it's a little different for you just because you grew up in the family business and being surrounded by it. But I remember when I started Lyles Barbecue with our family, like for me, I thought, man, these people are lucky and they're smart and they just know something I don't know. And ultimately what it was just, do you show up every day? Do you open at the right time every day like you said you would? Do you provide the product you said you would? Is it the highest quality product you can do? And then do you take care of your people while you're there? And that's pretty much it. It's not way more complicated than that. And ultimately what crashed us was we didn't have enough cash, which is a whole nother side thing with expanding the business. And I would love to use that as a little bit of a segue, because I know you decided to do the M&A route of sort of purchasing other businesses to grow your business, whereas what we try to do is start a whole new concept off the wall, and that thing crashed and burned. So two questions. One, how do you know when it's time to expand, or that your company's ready to expand? Because all of a sudden when you grow, your systems get stressed way more than they would have on just a regular Monday. And then two, what were your thoughts in doing M&A versus doing a brand new brand or launching in a new city or something like that?
So we've done 2 acquisitions in the last few years, and honestly, both of them have literally fallen into my lap. So the first one we did with Purdon's, long-term, well-respected company in this area, and their son Sam and I were about the same age, and we had been working together on some projects. They were actually doing some linen processing for us. COVID hits. we kept going. We never shut down during COVID. We were deemed essential, so we were doing job test sites. We were doing it pretty much all over the state. I think at one point we had about a third of the test sites in the state of Kentucky. So that was a huge blessing and kept us going. But we had some linen and some stuff that needed to be processed, and I called Sam and I went over there, took it, and his dad Paul was there, and I hadn't seen Paul in maybe 10 years. He'd long since retired, and he goes, I want to talk to you about something. I was like, oh, okay, what's going on? Would you be interested in buying us? And I was like, well, I'm just here to get my linens cleaned, but and that kind of started down that trend, and we.
It's an expensive dry cleaning bill.
Right, and we looked at it and we're like, it just kind of made sense for us where we were. I mean, we had been on a growth trend, and Lexington, Kentucky is not a top tier market. So how you're going to make that growth, you have to really think about what it was. And we kind of thought growth by acquisition is probably the way that's going to work. And then in our most recent one that we just did at the end of last year, similar situation. The owner and I had done business together for years. He's a great guy, and I thought he had a good business, and I thought we had something that we could bring to it to really put our twist on it. And just random phone call one day, hey, I'm interested in getting out. Would you like to buy me? And the numbers worked. So, I've thought about doing the start from scratch, but the startup cost right now, especially just in the purchasing of the products and the hard goods, because everything that we deal with is wood, plastic, or petroleum based. And I know plastic is mainly petroleum based too, but I mean, trucks, tables, chairs. I mean, it's just very expensive. So if you can walk into a place that has established product, that has established customer base, and what I learned on the second one is if you can come in with staff, especially your key top end staff, it makes that transition a whole lot easier.
I wish I knew that before we started the barbecue restaurant, because knowing what I know now, I would have just purchased somebody else's restaurant that wanted to get out, because I could have gotten all the equipment on a discount. I could have gotten a business that already existed, that already had momentum. People ask me sometimes, they're like, what do you really miss about the barbecue days? And there's a lot that I miss, but one of the things I really miss is just the momentum of having a business that operated for 6 years and was growing. That's like, you have people, you have systems, you have brand recognition, you have the power of momentum cannot be understated. And I think if I had to do it all over again, I would probably try to go the M&A route, because like you're talking about right there, it's just, there's a momentum there versus all right, it's going to be $500,000, maybe $1 million plus to acquire all the new equipment that we need and trucks. And you guys are in a crazy market right now from just getting that stuff here. I can only imagine what that's like. So yeah, I mean, that makes a lot of sense to me. It sounds like maybe it just comes down to your business. I don't know, because this Hy-Vee Marketing, the new company I started, we're a service-based business. So it's really about talent. It's not so much about having physical products, but I'm dumb. I started it from scratch versus going out buying something. So maybe I haven't actually learned my lesson, Ian. I don't know. I should have called you beforehand.
Listen, if I knew everything that I knew now before I started down this road, I can 100% guarantee you I would be a greeter at Walmart.
Yep. Ignorance is bliss in the land of business leadership. I got to know. So this is one of my favorite questions to ask entrepreneurs. And it's two-sided. There's everybody always asks for the underrated thing, and I do want to do that, but I want to start with the other side. So what is the most overrated thing in business? And so what I mean by that is what is the thing that you hear mentioned more often or talked about or people worry about way too much that's really just overrated and doesn't matter as much as people like to make it seem like it does?
That's a good question. There's probably a lot of things, but I was at a guy's store one time, and he had a sign on the wall, and it said, "I've seen the end of the movie. It's going to be okay." And I think we get so caught up in whatever that thing is, whatever that rock that's in the road or that what we're trying to navigate, and it's just oh my gosh, what am I going to? You're just freaked out and lose sleep, and your hair turns white, and everything. You're so stressed out, but if you step back and look, there's every situation that's ever been put in front of me, we've gotten through it. With great team beside me, great family support, everything, you're going to get through those situations and how you handle it. And that's definitely one of the biggest things there.
I'm a walking testament to that, man, because I literally crashed the first business I had after 6 years of building the thing from scratch. And, could not have been a worse financial ending for that company. And I wouldn't go back and really change anything at this point because it ended up resulting in me moving down here, meeting my new business partners, getting to know them, learning the skill of marketing even more than I already knew. And now I have another company. So it's a good reminder because we do tend to look at the rocks, no matter the size, just because they're the rock of the day in the road, that you're thinking like, oh, this is the worst thing ever. I love that. That's a good reminder. So what's underrated? What is the thing that you wish people would talk more about when it comes to, I don't know, entrepreneurship, leadership, tent rentals?
It's okay to fail. I mean, I thought I had to be perfect. I had to do everything right. I could never be wrong. I just always had to be the best. And reality is, the most successful people in the world, probably the people that fail the most. It's how you pick yourself back up that builds your character and your future success. How you learn from them. I've learned probably more from the things that I've screwed up than the things that I did right. And I could probably list more of those off than anything. It's that I do something wrong every single day. Just most of the time I'm lucky and people don't see it.
Yeah, we've got a rule that I learned back in the barbecue days, actually, and I violated my own rule, which is why the barbecue restaurant's not there anymore. But it was there's two guardrails that you can't come back from. I mean, and even that you technically can, but the rule of thumb is on one side is the don't bankrupt the brand, and on the other side is don't bankrupt the business. And so not bankrupting the business would be don't take financial risks that take you out of the game. Don't take don't steal, things like that. Don't bankrupt the brand is like, don't do things that reflect badly on the company to the point where people wouldn't want to do business with you anymore, right? Like it doesn't represent your brand or your values or anything like that. A compromise of one of those things, and all of a sudden, you're SOL. Everything else in between is a risk worth taking in my mind because you can learn from it and because it doesn't drive you off the side of the road and then all of a sudden you're out of the game. So I love that. I think that's a great way to end today's show. I really appreciate you taking the time, man. I know you got family things to take care of, so I'm not going to hold you too long. Ian, this has been great, man. I'll make sure to link up y'all's websites and all the things for people to connect with you if they want, and then I'll let you go, man. We appreciate everybody watching. We will see you next week.